So, hello, welcome to another episode of My Best 11 podcast. Today we are joined by an absolute Luton legend. He was voted one of the greatest players ever to don the Luton shirt and played for so many clubs and managed so many clubs. Arguably Luton's most decorated manager as well, by lifting the Johnson's Paint Trophy and officially lifted the League One title only 2 years ago as well. We are lucky to have on Mick Harford. How are you, Mick?
I'm great, Andrew. Yeah, thank you. Thanks for the invitation to do this. It's an honour and pleasure, and obviously Marvin being involved in it, who I played with, it's absolutely brilliant, and looking forward to it.
Excellent, and we're looking forward to listening to yours. Marv, how are you over in America? How are things?
Morning, Andrew. Just like waking up a little bit 5 minutes ago, and it's good to see Mick's smiling face on the screen as I remember him from our playing days. And often, when I go back, I catch up with Mick quite a bit now and then. So it's great to see him again. You good, Mick?
We'll probably get to some of those stories later. So we'll move straight into it. What would you say your formation is, Mick? Obviously, when you played different formations as a player, manager, what would you say your formation you've gone for the players you've picked?
Today is a 4-3-3 formation with two attacking wide men and a central striker. Not really an orthodox striker who plays in there, but the centre forward I played with is very, very talented player. 4-3-3, two attacking midfield players with a holding midfield player and a back four and a goalkeeper.
I would have thought, going back from when you was playing, Mick, it would have been a straight traditional 4-4-2, but he's gone for 4-3-3. Look at him.
Well, it's a difficult scenario picking the best players, because I mean, sometimes you're playing the best teams and they are not the best players, you know. And
True.
I mean, the best team I ever played in was at Luton Town, and you know, I mean, we had a fantastic run here, had a golden period, a little golden era. Some of the players in there weren't renowned as some of us I played with, but as a team we were fantastic, you know, and we blended together well. We had a good mix, and as we all know, we had a good camaraderie and a good spirit, which for me is the most important part of a good football team.
Excellent. I agree. So let's go. Start straight off. Probably for you the most boring position on the pitch as a striker. Who have you gone for goalkeeper, Mick?
I played with a hell of a lot of good goalkeepers, I would say. I was fortunate enough to play with a guy called Peter Geraint at Lincoln. Then I moved on, played with Dave Seaman at Birmingham. Moved on, I played with Peter Shilton at Derby County. Les Seeley, Andy Dibble at Luton Town, and numerous other very, very good goalkeepers. But the goalkeeper who, in my opinion, was the best goalkeeper I played with, 6'3".
Got him. I got him.
He's my best friend.
TC!
Won't be a real popular choice by many of the Luton fans because of the club he used to play for, and he is a renowned legend at that football club and one or two other clubs he played for, especially at Manchester City, where he had a great career. And one of the goalkeepers I played with was an understudy to this goalkeeper, Andy Dibble. And I mean, Andy Dibble has also backed me up and say what a very, very good goalkeeper he was. So the goalkeeper I chose, I played with him at Birmingham City. He obviously played for Watford. Sorry, guys, and he played for Manchester City. But his name was Tony Coton. Very unfortunate not to get any England caps. But he was in one of the squads when Geraint was manager, and he went over to Australia. Funny enough. So Tony Coton would be my goalkeeper.
What was he like? You say he's your best mate now. What was he like? Straight down the line, crazy, simple. What did he like to do with the ball? Or what was he like on and off the pitch as well?
Just explain. Well, Tony could have played centre forward. His techniques are good. He could have been a modern day goalkeeper. He's left-footed. He's good balance. Great hands. Fantastic decision-making goalkeeper. we're still the best of mates. He lives in Bolton. We speak every day. We go on holiday every year to Mallorca. Won't go any further on that one, but we have good times when we go away. He's just an all-round top goalkeeper, in my opinion. And I'm not just
Mick.
saying it because pardon.
Oh.
Yes.
No, go on, carry on. Sorry, go on, carry on.
I'm not just saying it because he's my best friend. I honestly believe that he is the best goalkeeper I've ever played with. I played with David Seaman, who was just an up-and-coming young kid at Birmingham, and Schultz, who was a legend, was coming to the end of his career at Derby.
Mick, as you know, there's loads of legendary stories about yourself and TC, as he's known as. And one of the stories, I don't know if you can officially say this happened, was I heard, this is back in the day now, Andrew, when I'm like a young kid and I'm growing up, I'm just joined Luton, that when he was down the road, Tony Geraint playing for that club, Mick used to go over there quite a bit and have the odd drink. And apparently they're in the bar and these fans of Tony's club sort of got a little bit out of sorts and a little bit aggressive. And one of them saw Mick and came up to Mick, and obviously they've been drinking, these supporters, hit Mick over the head with a glass bottle. Mick's now sort of started running towards the door, and they thought he was running out, and they said, "Where's he going?" He said, "He's going to lock the door." Mick was going to lock the door with them in there. Is that true?
I like that version, Mark. That's good, that.
That's what I heard. With all them in there. Huh?
Now, what happened was, that did happen. It was one of many occasions that we went out, but this time it got a bit fractious, and Tony'd gone to the toilet. As he come out the toilet, one of the lads had chinned him. So I've ran down the end of the bar, and someone hit me over the head with a bottle, as you said, and split my head wide open. And I never ran to the door. We just laid a couple out, and that was it, and we left, So we had a few little fracas along the way, but we're all a bit old now. We're all a bit mellow, and the good memories, you can have a laugh about it, but it was crazy, really, what really happens, Okay.
So that doesn't happen in Magaluf at all every year, then? Magaluf or Alcudia?
No, very mellow. Couple of glasses of wine and an early night. That's normally a bit of pasta and off to bed. Yeah.
We'll leave it at that. Right back then. Let's go to right back.
Right back was he's an Irishman. I played with him at Birmingham. He was right up my street because he was like the modern day fullback who would attack without even thinking about what he was doing. He would be up and down, and the balls he used to cross for me, the supply chain from him was brilliant, and that's where I got my most of my goals when I played for Birmingham was from the right hand side from this lad who kept crossing the ball. He was an Irish international. I think he had 40-50 caps for the Republic of Ireland. He started his career, I think he started his career at Oxford. Had a great career. He was slightly older than me when I was at Birmingham. So I had 2 or 3 years with this player, and he was immense for me. He was immense for the club. He was great around the place, and he was just a proper lad. And on the opposite side of him, I had Mark Dennis as well, who was also a left back and attacking left back. So for me, having this player as a right back and Mark Dennis on the left back as a left back, attacking options and balls in the box were brilliant for me as a centre forward. And the right back I was David Langan.
David Langan, yes.
Okay.
David Langan, yeah. David Langan. I played with some superb right backs. I was fortunate enough to play with England, and Gary Stevens was playing that night. But Langy always sticks out to me in terms of his attacking prowess and the delivery he used to put in the box for me.
What was Briggs close? Tim Breaker close being up there, Mick?
Yeah, Tim was in my, as we said earlier, Marvin, in my Luton Town 11. Tim, which I thought we were doing today. Thanks. Caught me on the hop. Tim would definitely be in my Luton Town 11, and runs Langy a close second, 100%. Yeah, great player, Tim, up and down, Briegel as we used to call him, because he played like a German and he was non-stop, and he was like you couldn't switch him off, fit as anyone. But Langy, his quality, Marvin, I'd go for Langy. Yeah.
As a striker, what's it like? Obviously, you were known as, and you said yourself, you used to get a lot set up. You used to be known as a big centre forward. Obviously, you said you got a lot of service from the right and the left. Did you like to be known as that big centre forward, or did it irritate you sometimes where you actually, because you were very, very good with your feet on the ground, did it irritate you a bit getting that reputation, or did you not care?
I didn't care really. You prove yourself on the pitch, and I always believed, and my thought was as long as my teammates thought I was a good player, I wasn't bothered what anyone else thought, and that's what I used to think. You had to prove yourself obviously to your manager and to the players you played with, and that's why Marvin will tell you the same. When we were at Luton, we trained hard, we trained like Trojans. We couldn't get us off the training ground, and that's the way it was in those days, and we just because we wanted to improve ourselves. So basically, if the lads thought I was a good player and I was delighted with that. That's who I had to prove to the players I was playing with.
What's it sweeter finishing? A beautiful header or a beautiful finish in the top corner?
Any goal is beautiful. It's a difficult question. There's nothing better than a nice header that flies in the top corner. Yeah, but there's nothing better that comes clean off the right boot or the left boot and it flies in the top corner. It's just. I watch football now and we all see individual. I like team goals, mate. I always like team goals, and part of the ethos at Luton Town was a team ethic. It was all built up by the management and obviously the players, because the players had a brilliant camaraderie in the spells I was here, and that was a massive part of my love for Luton Town, was the spirit and the camaraderie about the players. So team goals were good for me, and if I was on the end of them, great.
It's good to hear. Left back then. Let's move across the other side.
I think he's mentioned him, isn't he? Is it Mark Dennis?
No. Well, I was fortunate enough to play a couple of times for England, and I was in the squad for 2 or 3 times, and I was unused substitute for about 12 times. So, and there was a left back in the England squad who I played with in my full debut, and he's well renowned throughout the country as being arguably one of the best left backs ever to play for England. Yeah. Throughout his career, he had a fantastic career. He's now coaching in the Premier League. He had various clubs, but his main club was Nottingham Forest, and he's my type of player. Run through a brick wall for the manager. Team player, up and down. Yes. Stuart Pearce, 100%. Yes. Yeah. Stuart Pearce would be in my all-time 11 who I played with, and it just typifies what a team is all about, in my opinion.
I have to agree with you, Mick. I mean, again, fortunate to play back in the 80s and against Forest. He was one of those ones who was a typical, wore his heart on his sleeve, didn't he? And when he was going in for a tackle, you knew that if you didn't go in hard as he was going in, you would come out and get hurt. I remember playing at Forest on a couple of occasions and going in to tackle with him and more or less thinking it's him, but he just had to go and do it. And I had to go in harder than I would normally go in if that's the case, because I knew Mick would say to me, if you don't effing go in hard, you're going to get hurt, Marv, sort of thing. So you had to go in hard,
That's why I used to send you in, Marv.
But Mick, I'd only go in as hard as I did because I knew you was on the field. If you was not on the field to back me up, I wouldn't go in as hard.
It's bizarre. You had Kingsley on here, didn't you? And obviously, I bet that was a brilliant podcast with Kings, with his insight into Nottingham Forest days. And when you look at Stuart Pearce, you think, oh, he could handle Cloughie. Then you look at Kingsley, and you wonder, would he be able to manage him? But it's amazing how teams are put together. You couldn't imagine Kingsley playing with Pearcey and Roy Keane and all that lot.
Yeah.
But his ability shone through, and I mean, he again was in my best ever Luton Town 11. But obviously, shame he never made my all-time 11.
Yeah. So you see Stuart Pearson, obviously
Yes.
playing on the left-hand side, got the reputation for being a bit of a crazy guy. What was he like in the dressing room then? Was he one of these leaders in the dressing room, or was he always up front, obviously? And do you think as well, second part of that, do you think that him coming through non-league, because he worked his socks off to come all the way through non-league. I think he started at Whetstone, just down the road in Hertfordshire. Wilson, yeah, sorry, Wilson.
We're going tonight. We're off there tonight, me and Nathan. Believe it or
Are you?
not. Wilson are playing Stockport tonight, so we're going down there. We've got a young lad on loan at Wilson, so we've got to watch him.
Harry Eisted, isn't it? Harry Eisted?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah, well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
Good.
Yeah.
So what was he like then in dressing room? Was he? And do you think the non-league made him better?
When he was in the dressing room, he was probably one of the younger ones, and so he had. I mean, there was probably more people who were more vocal than him, like Terry Butcher, Brian Robson, one or two others who were more vocal than him. But you could tell Pearcey was going to be a top player. He was assured. He had confidence in himself. He was of a bigger physique than most people in terms of, you could tell. And as you said earlier, the beauty of it is he come from non-league, which is great, and it's a brilliant way to come through. Obviously, I played with Vinnie Jones at Wimbledon, who was exactly the same. I think him and Stuart were more or less in the same team. I've come through the same club, and it's great when there's a success story. It's absolutely brilliant, and he's been a legend at Nottingham Forest, and obviously he's renowned for his penalty miss, but he took it on the chin, and he's had an unbelievable career, and I'm really pleased for him because he's a top bloke, And when he was under 23 manager for England, I was out of work, and I turned up at a Watford game. Watford were playing. Not sure who they were playing anyway. And Stuart was there. We in the corridor having a cup of tea, and he says, "What are you doing, Mick?" I said, "I'm not doing anything. I'm just watching the game." He went, "Do you want to come and work for me?" I said, "I'd love to, yeah." I said, "Doing what?" He said, "I'll do a bit of scouting." And I swear to God, within 3 or 4 days, there was a contract through. Everything was through there. I mean, an unbelievable, generous guy and all that, And I worked for Stuart for about 9 months, just watching games for him, watching players. So I owe him one, and that's not the reason why I put him in my team now. It's,
No.
because he was a top player. And Marvin should now be a left back.
Yeah, definitely. No, I agree with you. Good choice, Mick. Good choice.
Centre backs then.
This is going to be interesting.
Who you got for centre back?
Left or right?
Either one.
These two centre backs will both play on the right hand side, but I've got to pick them both.
People have done that, Mick. That's fine. People have done that before. They've done that. People have done that.
I used to room with this guy. I used to room with him, not at club football, when we were on international duty. And he became a very, very good friend of mine, and still is. He's a London boy. Great kid. Great man. Say kid. A great bloke. He's got family in the game now. Some of his sons are playing in the game. He is, along with Stuart Pearce, a legend at a certain club. He played the majority of his career at this certain club. Then he went off to Sheffield Wednesdays, managed by David Pleat.
Yeah.
He made his. I think Des made. Oh, I'll give it. Oh, yeah.
Des Walker.
He made his debut.
I was going to guess Des Walker. I was going to guess Des anyway.
Very close. He made his debut for England very close to when I did. I think he was the game before or whatever. But I played with Des, and he was a top man, and you'll never beat Des Walker. And I played against him against Forest and against Sheffield Wednesday, and they were right. You'll never beat Des Walker. He was the quickest thing on 2 legs. Not great technically, but brave, heads, get up and challenge. He was a real proper defender, and that, and that's what I like in my defenders. people ask me about defenders, and the first thing I say, can he head it? Can he tackle? It's not, can he play? Can he pass? It's, for me, it's, can he defend?
Can he defend?
Yeah.
Can he do his job, Mick? That's your role.
Yeah. So Des is one of my centre halves.
I mean, you moved to a few clubs over your time, and Des Walker went abroad. Do you have any regrets about going abroad? Did you ever have a chance, Mick, to go abroad and play in another country? Obviously, Des went to Italy.
I don't know whether this is true. When agents really weren't in the game, when Chris Waddle went to Marseille, some agent rang me up and said, Mick, they're interested in taking yourself and Chris to Marseille. Would you be interested? I was injured at the time. I did have a few knee injuries throughout my career, and at the time I was injured, so it never transpired, never happened. So I didn't really get the opportunity to go abroad. No, I didn't. Would I have liked to? Of course you would. You want to try these things, experience these things. But no, I didn't. I never got an opportunity.
Okay, interesting. And Des Walker, we've heard he was a good boy, good out in the social side. Is that true? Obviously, you roomed with him. That was from Kingsley told us that. Yeah.
No, it was Oaksy. Oaksy was.
Oh, was it Oaksy?
Yeah, Oaksy played with him at Wednesday.
Oh yeah, did Oaksy have him in his team as well?
Yes, Oaksy had him in his team. Yeah.
Oh yeah, good. Oh, Des is the king of Nottingham. You know, you go to Nottingham and go and see Des. He'll look after you. He'll take you on a night out. You get in any pub you want to, and he is the legend of Nottingham. He's the king of Nottingham.
I had him on my stag. I went to Nottingham for my stag weekend when I first got married, Mick, and obviously Oaksy was out with me, and then he goes, oh, let me give Des a ring, and rang Des, and Des was there within 5 minutes, and literally we did not have to queue anywhere to get in, not a single place.
Oaksy must have owed him some money, did he? Oaksy owed him some money. He owed him a fiver or something, did he?
Awesome. Other centre back.
Who's it?
This centre back, I played club football with him. In my opinion, he is one of the best players I've ever played with. The way he got everyone together at the football club, the way he taught young players how to defend and how to be in a back four in terms of when to attack, when not to attack. He came into the football club, he hardly trained. He put on a Saturday. He knew what you were getting every Saturday. I saw the bloke play with numerous injuries, broken arms, anything. If he could physically get himself on the football pitch, he would have done. And he had this knack of the ball used to land on his head all the time. Weird. And people used to say to me, oh, how come the ball lands on his head all the time? I said, because he's a good defender. And in my opinion, he should have had more caps for England. He played for England. Very, very good player. Still a real good friend of mine. And arguably, in my opinion, at Luton, he was the best signing Luton Town ever made in the history. And his name's Steve Foster.
Fozzie, yes. I mean,
Marv can tell you more about him because my memory's gone a little bit now.
Mick, would he be the captain of that team there? Would he be the one to captain that 11 you've got there, or close to? No, close. But no, again, I spoke to Bertie the other day, his son. So Fozzie's gonna come on here. He's like a little bit like yourself, not sure on how to work some technology. So Bertie's taken over and. Well, Mick, you was crying. You couldn't get the audio working earlier on. You couldn't get the key on and off. We know it happens. Don't worry. Anyway, changing the subject. Yes, Fozzie. I mean, Man Mountain, like you said, when I learned so much from him when I first come to the team. Obviously, yourself and Steenie, but more so Fozzie being a defender, me being defender. I think it was a case that, I mean, it'd be like stupid not to just to watch the guy and just learn from him, because he wasn't slow, Mick, was he? But he wasn't blessed with pace, but he was never, in my opinion, caught out of position. And that was because obviously he just read the game and knew where to be, basically. So,
well, I mean, when we all signed for Luton, and Fozzie was the first one that came in, which completely brought in, and now we had two very, very good attacking fullbacks in Mitchell Thomas, Rob Johnson, Jim Breaker. We had attacking fullbacks, and that's the way completely wanted to play and all that, but Fozzie put the reins on them big time. He said, where you going? You're staying here. Then with respect, Luton were a really, really good attacking team with the likes of Steenie and Paul Walsh and Ricky Hill and all those players. But they'd end up winning 4-3 one week, or getting beat 5-4, or drawing 4 each. All of a sudden, we start winning 1-0 and 2-0 and not conceding any goals, and you start climbing up the table. And I mean, that was in my opinion just the way Fozzie manages his fullbacks, manages his team, manages holding midfield players and stuff like that. And he just managed them as a captain, And right, you can go off you go now. Go on, Mitchell. You canter on and get up the left side now. And he always got himself, was always organised, and always made sure he was never exposed, in all fairness.
As a striker, what was it like to train with these guys? Obviously, Des Walker, Steve Foster. Who was the toughest one to train against and score against in training?
Well, that's a good question, because I can't remember. But they were all good players. When I turned up at Luton as a football club, and I'll always say Luton Town was the team I played in, was the best team I played in as a club, and they were all internationals. You got Mal Donaghy, Fozzie, Ricky Hill, Brian Steen, Peter Nicholas, Ashley Grimes. I mean, all proper players, and it was a tough gig. And obviously you come up against. I mean, one of the best centre halves I played against was Terry Butcher. Great centre half, man mountain, fantastic on the ball. He'd have been a modern day good centre half, Terry Butcher, because he was technically very good. And you in training, all you did in training was you used to work hard and just work your socks off, and something dropped for you. You try and take a chance. But it was easy to play against Fozzie in training because he never came out. He was always in the treatment room, really. So no, it's a good question. It's a good question.
Mick,
they're all difficult. All good.
Yeah, just going into that, similar to Andrew's question. Now, in your opinion, I mean, again, this is not being disrespectful to any players you played against. Who would you say was giving you the most tough time in the game? Because I used to watch a few games, and one particular person in my head who used to give as good as much as what you dished out to him was Keown. He used to do quite not bad against you, in my opinion.
It's a great question, Marvin. In the games, it's difficult to say, but in the games, I get asked this a lot. Who's the best centre half I've ever played against? And there was so many good centre halves around in those days, and everyone was different. You look at Hansen and Lawrenson. You hardly got a kick when you played against that lot. So I remember we played Birmingham played Liverpool on a Tuesday night, and we drew 1 each I think it was a quarter final of the League Cup. And I scored, then Souness equalised at St Andrews. And we played a replay at Anfield on the Thursday. So, they talk about loads of games nowadays. We just never trained, and we went up there. And Marvin, I tell you now, without a word of a lie, I stood on the halfway line and watched the game for 90 minutes while they just popped it around, and the ball would come up, then it'd get taken off you, then they'd go back there. And that's the way they played. They kept the ball off teams and that, and Phil Neal scored the winning goal. We got beat 1-0. But then you have a different challenge. The next week you come against Alvin Martin or Tony Adams and Martin Keown, as you said, who were tough nuts and all that, and really hard to crack. And they weren't intimidated by anything. They get tight up your arse and that, and not do anything to you and give whatever they were getting and that, But for me, the best one, if you want to ask the question, the best one as an individual, I'd have to say probably Paul McGrath. he had a bit of everything, you know. He paced, quick, strong, aggressive. He did me a few times when we played him on the plastic pitch, and he wasn't intimidated by anything. And he was a top player. I wouldn't say but he was probably the hardest opponent you play against, you know, on a Saturday afternoon. All different, all very, very good players, but all very different, and all got different traits, all got different strengths. And more than what we used to look for, they've all got weaknesses as well.
Yeah.
As we
They have
all have.
indeed. They have indeed. Excellent. Well, what we can do is we're going to pause there for a second, Mick, and we're going to pause for a break, and we'll be back after the break to hear the 3 midfielders and the 3 attackers in Mick Harford's My Best 11.
Thank you for listening to My Best 11 Pod. We are currently accepting applications for advertisement and sponsorships. You can reach us at My Best 11 Pod or mybest11pod@gmail.com. Thank you.
Great. So we are back for the second part of My Best 11 podcast. We have Mick Harford here. Just to go through so far, just to remind listeners, goalkeeper Tony Cotton, got David Langham, Stuart Pearson, Des Walker and Steve Foster. We now get into the tasty bit, into midfield, and we'll let Mick take it away in any order that you want to. I assume there's going to be a holding midfielder, or are you going to do a Gareth Southgate and play 3 or 4 holding midfielders in there? Or what are you thinking?
We'll go from right to left.
Okay.
Off you go.
Bobby Charlton is my hero, my favourite ever footballer, and still, in my opinion, the best player ever to grace a football pitch. This bloke's not far behind him in terms of his England ability and what he's done for England and how he was. He's a bit of a legend and all that. I know he's from the northeast. He made his debut when I played. He came on substitute whilst I was playing for England in my full debut, and that was his first cap. He's a legend at loads of clubs. He's been abroad, like you said, did I have an opportunity to go abroad? This guy went abroad to Italy and he ripped it up over there. He's a Geordie. He come down to London and in my opinion, I was a bit devastated because I love him to bits and he's that type. I really wish he'd gone to Manchester United, where I know he had the opportunity to go to Manchester United, as he says in his book. But he turned them down and went to Spurs instead. And I think if he'd have gone to Manchester United, and he would have been looked after more. I'm not saying by the manager, or it would have been by the players when you got the likes of Keane and Neville, and they would have controlled him a little bit more. I think when he come down to London, at times he just lost control of himself. You know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about Paul Gascoigne.
Paul Gascoigne,
yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And Gaza for me he's up there in a very high status in English football in terms of his ability and what he's done for the country as a player. And I think it could have been a hell of a lot more, like probably other people think.
Oh, definitely. Was he obviously in training? Was he always as tricky and had the tricks in his bag? Or was he one of these lazy attacking midfielders that knew he had it and turned it on a Saturday?
He wasn't lazy, and he trained really hard. And
okay,
I mean, think back to the camps and that. You know, when there wasn't the sports science there are nowadays. But myself, Chris, and Gaza would go into the gym, and we'd have sit-up competitions, and just by ourselves after training. He'd be last off the pitch doing his tricks, flicks, and that, you know, and trying to better himself. He was always last off the training ground, always out there training, straight in the gym, and first on the training ground in the morning. But around the place, he was the life and soul of the place, absolute life and soul of the place, and he's definitely worth a place in my team, 100%.
I have to agree with you, Mick. I mean, we talk about being a professional football player. You're on another level because obviously, I mean, you have the supporters and the fans who would love to just play one league game, but then when they're watching ourselves and their players, their idols, it's like they know they're on another level. And I think for me, when we played again, when I played with him when he was at Tottenham a lot, is a case where, yes, there's a lot of players on the field of the same standard and ability, but like when he was on the field, there was another level on top of that, Mick, if you know what I mean, to say that this guy was ridiculous.
I think if you ask any English footballer, he'd be in there all-time 11. In terms of pick your best England 11, he'd be in there, 100%. And he was a genius. He was a genius. Things he did in training, things he did on a football pitch. As I said, I just think he'd gone to United. I wish he'd gone to United instead of coming down to London. And I think he might even been better as a player.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, obviously, yeah, no, I agree. I mean, do you with obviously regards to Gaza, do you think that as a player yourself and Marv as well, do you think that attacking players, do you think it's natural, or do you think you have to work at it, or both? I mean, this is also for young kids listening out to make it as to that elite level.
Well, Gaza went. Sorry, go on, Mark. Sorry.
I was going to say, well, Mick hit the nail on the head. I think just hard work. I mean, everyone was just sees the Gaza on the field and the tricks and the skill. But I mean, I didn't obviously play with him, but I know that Mick, probably knowing what he does. I mean, he said like they were training. He would probably be the last of the training field, and in that session and whatever session it was, every day he would be dripping with sweat. All the top players. I mean, I'm guessing now, Messi, Ronaldo, they work hard. That's one thing. That doesn't just happen overnight. That skill stuff. They've had to work at that. Yeah. Sorry, Mick.
No, I honestly believe what you say and where it comes from. I think that it's most definitely. I mean, he's a street footballer. That's what he is. And you see what he does on the ball, and the way he drops his shoulder, the way he goes past people, and that's just natural, No coach in the world could coach what he does. No coach in the world can tell Messi what to do or Ronaldo what to do. For me, that's just the Gazas and the George Best. That's natural ability, and that's learnt in the streets and playing in the parks and playing in the back garden, in the backyard and stuff and all that. Allied with the fitness he was fit as anyone, fit as anyone on the testings we used to do, and he was just a top all-round guy and all that, and he for me the best part of the team is the camaraderie and the spirit, and Gaza was the epitome of that, absolute epitome.
Oh, definitely, and you hear that from the stories and the players, and yeah, it's great to hear, and it's great to hear it from you, who actually played at England as well. That it's actually true that he was that type of life of the party behind scenes. Yeah. So moving on to the other central midfield, moving across now to the middle.
Well, he can play holding midfield player. He could attack. He could play attacking midfield player. Not just what I thought the best three midfield players to suit the team and the players I've played with. I played with this guy at Chelsea. He's an Irish international. Loads of caps, played in the World Cups, played in the Euros. A left-footed boy. Great energy, great up and down. Again, a fantastic personality, which is key for me. It makes a big part of being a footballer.
Is that Norwich?
He was at Norwich, yes. Norwich. I'd had a few clubs. I was fortunate enough to play with him at Chelsea. Great again, another, as I said, another good character and a really good all-round footballer, And he played in an era in the Northern Ireland team. The Southern Ireland team that had some real top-class players, and for him to stay in there for the amount of time he did, it was amazing. So the player I'm talking about is Andy Townsend.
Yeah.
He was the epitome. He could play on the left, on the right, in the middle, but I would use him as a holding midfield player because he had a good range of passing. He had a good brain. He could receive the ball in certain positions off the back four. He could get in support of the strikers if he needed to. And just a good all-round footballer, and reliable week in, week out. Every Saturday, you could rely on Andy.
Did he start at Norwich, Mick? Do you know? Was it Norwich he started at? I don't know.
I think you did start at Norwich, yeah. I think you'd have to check that. Don't quote me, but you'd have to check that. Yeah.
No, but I mean, they were a very good again. So I mean, blessed to be playing back in that time. They had some real top players, didn't they? Like I mean, the cook, there's a couple of cooks there was there as well. They had a couple of midfielders, and they had what's his name on the wing? It was quick.
Gordon.
Who?
Gordon.
Yes, Gordon, Flash on the wing. Yeah, I mean,
now they've got some good players there. Norwich is a good team.
Remember Fleck up front? Fleck, I think it's Fleck.
Yeah, Rob Fleck.
Fleck, I played with Fleck at Chelsea as well. Robert Fleck.
Yeah.
He come to Chelsea. No, they had some really good players. Jeremy Goss and people like that, you know, and they got themselves into the quarter-final of the European Cup or something.
That's right.
One of the cup. Yeah,
but like you said, Townsend went on to Villa. Captain Villa and all that, didn't he?
Yeah, great career, good lad, and again, another international footballer who was, I mean, he used to drive people on, encourage people. He was good in the dressing room, very vocal, and just a good all-round lad, you know, and a real top player, like, and for me, probably very, very underrated.
Excellent.
Yeah. What would you say is the difference? Obviously, Chelsea being on paper, a bigger club, not the biggest club you play for. You could argue whether or not, I'm sure, as a Northeast lad, you'd probably argue some of those clubs up there are bigger. But what was it? Is it a different dressing room in a big club compared to a club like Lincoln, that type of thing? Or is it the same, it's just better players?
Well, it's obviously better players and more experienced players who've been around the block a little bit more and they have that experience. They're playing at a different level, but it doesn't mean the same things are said in the dressing room. No matter what's dressing room, it's a professional dressing room, and at the end of the day, there's only one aim, and the one aim is to win as many football matches as you can, by hook or by crook. There's different levels of the respect. I mean, you walk into certain dressing rooms and there's respect, and dressing rooms are run differently all over the country and all that, you know. And harking back to the Luton dressing room, I mean, it was a tough gig to get in there and stay in there and get the respect of the senior players of like Ricky Hill and Fozzie and Mal Donaghy and them. It was a tough gig, you know. And like I harping back to what I said about earning the respect is, all I wanted to do was prove to my teammates that I was a good player. So by that, you had to work hard. You did the right things. But you know, when you got Vinnie in that dressing room as well at Chelsea and stuff and all that, you know, it's not an easy place to walk into. So I think for certain young players, you have to hit the ground running and that, you know, and you have to start off very well, or they'll be on your case straight away, you know. So it was a bit easier for me because I knew Andy just through playing against him. I knew Vinnie through playing against him. So it was slightly easier. It was slightly more intimidating for younger players coming into those type of dressing rooms with the higher profile players, I guess.
Is that good or bad, do you think? Do you think it makes them men quicker?
I think it's good, mate. I think it's good. I think, obviously, you don't want to intimidate them, but you want to put a little bit of pressure on them, just see how they can deal with it. You know, it's just a test, really. It's like anything. If you want to be the best, you have to pass tests. You have to go the extra mile. You have to do certain things to get to a certain level and all that. It's not handed to you. And part of being a footballer is being part of a dressing room.
And going back to what Mick just said about the dressing room, I mean, talk as being an apprentice growing up at Luton. We didn't want to go into that dressing room once them pros were in there in the morning of a morning. What we used to do, Mick, and you probably know this, we used to make sure that the boots or whatever thing we needed was out of that dressing room by 9:15, because obviously they would be in for 9:20, 9:30, right about that time. And if you had to go back in that dressing room, it's just like a case of like not being scared that they'd do anything to you, but just respect. You just didn't want to look at them in their face, or you just didn't want to. I can't explain it, but I know the game's evolved now, and that wouldn't happen in today. some kids will just bowl straight in the dressing room and probably wear some other pros' boots knowing them. But back in my day, it was a case like, listen, get your stuff out there because the pros will be in a minute. We don't want to be in there when they're in there.
Yeah, the key word is respect, Marvin, and that's what it's all about. You know, they want to get to a level, and I think these rules and regulations are put in by the coach. And in all fairness, you probably had the best coach you ever worked with, because I always believe the youth team coach should be your best coach. Stick in your mind. And John Moore, he was brilliant. He was absolutely brilliant. He ruled with an iron fist. Not in the discipline was excellent, and the work rate was excellent, and it's proven by all the players that was brought through by Luton whilst I was at the club. The players, the youth players, there was a stream of young kids coming through. There was an endless, and for me, it was down to discipline and respect.
Yeah.
No, interesting. So we'll keep going. Move across to the next centre midfielder.
He's the captain. He's the captain, yeah.
Is he from the northeast?
He's from the northeast, from a place called Chesley Street. Yeah, all the good players come from the northeast. Marvin, you know.
Not like us soft southerners.
No. There's some top players, Glenn Hoddle and all them. They're from down here, aren't they? They're legendary. They are. But this bloke is a legend in wherever he's been, whatever he's done. He's a real legend, and he had probably one of the best careers ever anyone could ever have in terms of achieving things and winning things and doing things and playing for top clubs. He started his career at West Brom, I think, and he obviously ended up in Manchester United. He was captain on the night I made my debut for England, and it was an honour to play with him, Brian Robson. He could play any position you want to in that midfield. He could play holding midfield, could play on the left, could play on the right. Fantastic to everyone, a leader, a winner, just a good all-round guy, and a wonderful footballer.
You talk about injuries, and if that man hadn't had so many injuries, he would have. I think the kids these days would know a lot more about him.
I think if you ever want to epitomise being a footballer, you should give the kids the video of that lot of Brian, you know, and when he played for West Brom and England especially and Man United. I mean, he wasn't called Captain Marvel for nothing. He's renowned and he's a legend, and that, you know. And you speak to any ex-Manchester United player who played with him, who was around him, who knew what he's about. He comes out top of the tree, 100%. Yeah, that's why I would have him as my captain of the team.
No, fantastic choice. I mean,
great choice.
There's not much you can say not say about the guy. I mean, but you're talking about now. He was right up there in the midfielders when you're talking about the people like Platini and Tigana and all that. They were good, but Robson was spoke about in the same breath as those. So that just proves to you what sort of player he was.
Awesome, he was awesome. Yeah, and you're right, Marv. He should be in there. I mean, the only sad thing is about those top players, and we've had, in my opinion, we've had loads of top England players like Gaza, for instance, that have never achieved the Holy Grail, which Bobby Charlton and Bobby Moore have never got to that level, you know. And do they deserve it? I'm not sure, but they give it a real go and give it a real chance, you know, and just never happened for them.
No, definitely so. What was Brian like when you came into the dressing room then in England?
Well, he was the leader. I mean, when I first ever met, joined the squad, he was first to shake my hand. We met at a hotel in Wickham. Then we trained locally around Wickham and that, you know. And he was there to welcome me. It was my first obviously squad when we met there. When I first meeting with the squad, and you going into a restaurant for food. That's when I first met them, and you bumping into Glenn Hoddle and Gary Lineker and all the top players in the country, and you think, "Whoa, what am I doing here?" You know. And he made you feel very welcome, made you feel at home. But it's like anything else. Once you get onto the training ground and get in the environment, everything seems to settle down and all that, you know. But just getting to know them is very, very hard, and that, you know, in and around on a daily basis. It's tough, you know. But But he made me feel very welcome, and obviously coming from the northeast, it helps, you know.
Does indeed, does indeed. So we're moving up front now.
Well, we'll go across the front three.
Yeah.
We'll start with the player on the right-hand side. I played with this guy at Luton. Again, he's an England international. Technically, one of the best players I've ever played with. Big, strong, athletic, run up and down, could play. Stick him in any position in the midfield. I've put him in a wide right position, but stick him in any position in the midfield, in a 3, in a 4, in a 2. He can handle it. His vision, his awareness in possession. Out of possession, he'll do a job for you. He'll work back. He's a team player. Just an all-round, really, and a real top guy. Probably one of the nicest guys you could ever meet. And Marvin knows what I'm talking about.
Tricky.
Yeah. And he's a wonderful footballer. Absolutely. I can't describe how wonderful he was in possession and how graceful he was. I can see him now running down the side of the pitch, drifting past people. And he wasn't a winger. He was a midfield player, but he still had that strength and power. And he'd deliver balls into the box. He'd turn up off the line in positions and handle the ball and twist and turn. And a wonderful player, yeah.
Are you playing week in, week out with Hill? Must have been fantastic. Was it a case of he learnt where you went, or you got told by him where the ball's going to go, or did he just find you wherever you were?
Well, Ricky really wasn't a crosser of the ball. I wouldn't say drift, a bit like where David Priest played on the other side, and I knew when Priest dropped his shoulder when the ball was coming. Ricky could drift past people, then he could check inside and come on his left or right foot, and he could play into Steenie and play a 1-2, whatever. You know, he wasn't a great supply for me, Rick, but he was a wonderful player. I wouldn't say he was a supplier for me, but we'd link up together, and he'd try and play off me and join in and things like that, you know. And he'd turn up in the box because he was a massive presence, you know. He was about 6'1" and big, strong boy, and very, very athletic. And I mean, people that size and really not that good technically, but he was a rude hullet, in all fairness. That's the type of player, you know. He was that type. He was a fantastic player, and again, in my opinion, didn't really get the recognition deserved at England level. Maybe should have had more caps. I think he only got 1 cap, Rick. So should have had more. But no, marvellous player and a lovely bloke.
I think his name's come up already on quite a few other pods, and we've spoke about it. And I've said, look, I mean, I've played with some great Luton players, yourself being included, one, Mick. But I've got to ask the question: who's the one who just maybe pips everyone? And I've chose Ricky because he had everything. I mean, in my eyes, he had everything. He could tackle. He could head. He could shoot. He could pass. You know what I mean? So it's true.
I forgot about that.
He could head. Yeah. His heading was he used to hang in the air. It was unbelievable. He used to just hang in the air and just so, like you said, strong, athletic. He had everything, you know. And it was just, it just. I mean, I think again, we all love Luton. It was a surprise to me that he didn't get that big move, maybe to a so-called bigger club, so to speak. You know.
Yeah, I totally agree. I mean, and maybe the beauty of it was, or why he never got that move, because Ricky was playing on the right wing, and he wasn't a winger, you know. He drifted inside, and as we went down, when we 88 Cup finally played in midfield, because Danny Wilson was then played on the outside of him. So Ricky, as he got a bit older, turned himself into a really top class midfield player, you know, really classy in possession. Really fantastic player.
Oh, excellent. So we'll go left-hand side and then we'll go up front, striker.
Okay, yeah. What do you want, the left winger?
Yeah, we'll go left wing, yes, yeah.
Left wing, I played with this guy when I was at Newcastle. When I was, I'd have been about 20. He was a year younger than me. And he knew from day one he signed for Towlow. He was at the club when I got there, and we become very good friends. And I'm not putting him in the team because he's a very good friend, because he's a world-class player. Absolutely world-class, had a fantastic career. Dance past people like they weren't there, get to the byline, cross balls, end up in unbelievable positions with 2 or 3 players lying behind him on the floor. He'd dance past people, a la John Barnes or whatever. So, arguably one of the best wingers ever to play for England, in my opinion. Great player, played in the good teams at Tottenham as well, and he ended up in Marseille, and he's still revered down in Marseille now, and I think they'll build a statue one day for him down there. Him and Papan, I think. Is it Papan, Mark? Yeah.
Papan, yeah.
Yeah, they'll have a statue.
And there's another one. Was it a better Pele? Was for them as well? Ibeni Pele.
Yeah, that'll do, Mark. Yeah.
No, so Chrissy
Waddle. Yeah.
Chrissy Waddle, yeah. Chris Waddle was a brilliant player. And from first day you lay eyes on him, you see him. He was a big, gangly kid, and he could still drift past people. And he was a great player, fantastic player.
And he had a left foot as well, which for England's quite a rarity.
A wonderful left foot. Yeah, drift past people, go either way, right left foot. You're not sure which way you're going to go. So unorthodox. Not a typical frame for a footballer. Big gangly kid and all that, But when he filled out, he had an amazing career. Went to Tottenham, played in that team.
It's the second time his name's come up in the last 2 or 3 weeks, isn't it, Andrew?
Yes, it is. Yeah, yes.
He was in someone else's team. Huh?
Well, I'm glad, because I think he deservedly should be in.
But this was when he was at Bradford, Mick.
Oh yeah, well you got Sheffield. You got Sheffield now.
Sheffield as well, yeah, that's right.
Sheffield Wednesday, and Chris still lives in Sheffield, but he's got status everywhere he goes. He's Bradford. I forgot about Bradford. Yeah, Marvin.
Because I met Andy Kwame was on here, and he's a real top guy. So he used to pick up Andy Kwame, drive him, and like he goes real top guy as well. Not only a good player, but a real top. Yeah.
I bet he charged him petrol money, Waddler. Hey, I bet he did, yeah. He was brilliant player, yeah. And he was signed from non-league a bit. I remember early on we were talking about Vinnie Jones and Stuart Pearson coming out of non-league, and Chris come out of Towlow and that, So no, it's good. It's good that they were breeding players down in the non-league years ago. So that's fantastic.
What's it like coming through, obviously up in the northeast in the 80s? And what was it like coming through there as a youth team player? And Marv's told us some stories in the dressing room, we heard earlier on about in the dressing room of first team dressing room as an apprentice. What was it like for you coming through?
Well, I wasn't a youth team player. I left school and I got a trial at Sunderland, youth team. I never got taken on. So then I was a plumber for 3 years. I worked as a plumber from the age of 15 to 18. Then I was playing for a boys' club in Sunderland with a few of my friends. Loved the football. And even a year before that, I packed in playing football. And I used to follow Sunderland. I'd go on, I packed in. I wanted to follow Sunderland. I'd go overnight to games, home and away. I was a loyal fan. Then a friend of mine who played for this team called Lambton Street Boys, the manager knocked on my door. He said, "Mick, do you want to play for us?" I went, "Not really, no, I'm enjoying myself watching Sunderland." He said, "We'll give you 50p a goal." I went, "Okay then." So I went and played for them, and inside 18 months, about 4 of us had been picked up. When Geraint Taylor was manager of Lincoln, there was a player called Alan Harding who was a player at Lincoln, and the manager of our team at Lambton Street was called, was called Norman Alder, who was a friend of Alan Harding. And he said, "Look, I've got some good young players up there. You need to come and have a look at them." And fair play to Geraint Taylor, he came up and he signed 4 of us. He signed me, a lad called Mickey Smith, who went on to have a good career. A lad called Alan Eden, who also, he went home because he was homesick, because he couldn't handle it, but he was actually the first one who broke into the team. And a guy called Keith Laybourne, who, God bless him, he died of cancer a few years ago, but he also broke into the team. So basically, 4 of us from the boys' club got our opportunity at Lincoln City, and that was down to Geraint Taylor. And ironically enough, the day I signed the papers for Lincoln City, Geraint Taylor became the manager of Watford. So he'd left, so off he went, so. But that was a brilliant experience, I think, and coming through there and from the boys' club and going.
I know you got there. Go on.
Pardon?
I was going to say, I know you got there in the end. I know you got there in the end, but when Newcastle came looking for you from Lincoln, was you quite a little bit disappointed that Sunderland didn't come in for you? I know you got there in the end to Sunderland, but like...
Yeah, I mean, I went to Newcastle at the wrong time. It was too much. I was too young and all that. I was only 20, 21 coming out of Lincoln and going to Newcastle into that environment and what was expected of you. And it didn't help me come from Sunderland, because you got to get off to a flying start. Like I said earlier to Andrew, it's when you go into these dressing rooms, if you're a young boy, you need to get off to a flying start. And it just got worse for me, especially being a Sunderland fan as well and not doing it in Newcastle. And I went away and I learned from that experience. I went to Bristol City after that, and I thought that'll never happen to me again. And fortunately, it didn't. I just couldn't handle it at Newcastle.
Going back to you saying you're a Sunderland fan. Obviously, Luton fans on here will well know your first game in your second full stint as manager was obviously when Luton went up to Stadium of Light a couple of years ago. What was that like for you as your first kind of game back in charge and going up to the club you support as a boy?
That was brilliant. It was totally unexpected what happened and all that, and to go back there, and I was probably one of the only people ever to go to the Stadium of Light and get cheered by both sets of fans. So it was quite nice, really, and we got a decent draw. We had a good performance. We kicked on a little bit after that game. So it was a brilliant experience for me, and it was a strange scenario that day, and but it'll live long on my memory of a really enjoyable day. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. So, and just one final question on that: would you say that if you weren't obviously with Luton right now, who would you look for first? Whose result, Sunderland or Luton?
Sunderland. I'm a Sunderland fan. They're my team, and everyone knows that, and everyone respects that. I have a passion for Luton Town Football Club, absolutely, a real passion, and I love the club. I love this football club. It's been great to me. The people of Luton have been fantastic to me, and I've got the utmost respect for every Lutonian and everyone in this football club for what we've been through down the years, and Marvin knows what it's like. It's a massive roller coaster ride being employed at this football club. It's, the ups and downs of it, is like no other club you'll ever work at. So, yeah, I have a passion and a love for this football club, but I'm a Sunderland fan.
Fair enough. So we'll move on. Striker. Sorry, Marv, you go, Marv.
No, centre forward, go. Yeah, centre forward. Go on, centre forward. That's what I was going to say.
Centre forward, very, very technical guy. Technique, probably as good as I've seen on any footballer. Great goal scorer. Very, very good friend of mine. Known him for years. Played golf for him a lot of times down the years. He's arguably, in my opinion, definitely one of the best strikers ever to play for Luton Town Football Club. His positional sense, the way he received the ball, he dropped his shoulder, he could go either way. His finishing was excellent, and he was just a real. I think England internationally, he got his caps for England. He on his day he was unplayable, really was unplayable on his day. His movement and really, I thought a hell of a lot of this guy in terms of being a footballer and what he's been through in life as well, because he had a tough upbringing. come from a real tough upbringing, and to achieve what he's achieved and be the player he is, it's a marvellous achievement, and that's Brian Stein, as you well know. Yeah. He was a top player, Brian.
Yeah.
Top player.
Totally agree. Listen, totally agree with you. I mean, he was like, he could turn on a sixpence, couldn't he? He used to get his little backside into you and go one way, then go the other. And I mean, top player.
Yeah, he was. And I mean, he wasn't frightened of anything, wasn't scared of anything. I think you put in front of the opposition, he just got on with it and did it. And he was a real good player. And again, as I say, he complimented the way the dressing room was at Luton. He enjoyed what went on at Luton. He enjoyed being part of it as well. He was a big part of the camaraderie and the spirit here that we had going, which in my opinion was endeared by Fozzie. So no, he was a massive part, and arguably, man, he's the best player I played with. And I go back to some of the strikers I played with. I played with obviously Dean Saunders at Derby County and one or two others. I played with Peter Beasley when we were playing for England and that, but I don't really. I played with Steenie for a long time, for a few years, and I know all his strengths, and I know what he's like, and I know what he's been through to get where he had to get to. So, yeah, 100% Brian Stein would always make my top 11, my best 11. Sorry, Mark.
Excellent.
What was it about Steenie then? If you could wrap it up, what would you say Steenie did to make your game better?
Well, the ball, certain balls would come into you, and the trajectory of them was different. I think if it's coming in low and it's coming into your chest, he'd come around the front of you. If it's coming in where there's only one place you can put it, and that is touch it in behind. He'd be happy to run behind. He'd link up with me if I saw him in possession. I'd try and make a little wall for him so he could play off me, and then maybe get it wide or get a shot away. We had some little things where little words of them, Jack, Fred, and all that, Marvin, where we little balls run through our legs and overs and stuff and all that, and we did practice some, and at odd times it did work in games on a Saturday, and it was part of our makeup in terms of trying to be clever in the final third and try to be different. I thought we tried to be different, Marv, do you, to other teams?
Yeah, 100%, Mick. It's only yesterday. I mean, at a tournament, coaching the girls, I was speaking about the Fred and the Jacks and stuff, and they were going, "Well, what if you got someone called Fred in your team?" I went, "We didn't have that one Fred in our team." Yeah. And they said, well, "What if you signed someone and their name was Fred?" And I said, "It was that much in our history. We would never sign a Fred because the actual move was more important than having a Fred in our team."
We changed the name, wouldn't we? We call it a Marvel.
Sid. Or Sid. Remember Sid, Mick? Remember Sid?
We call it a Marvin because you never played. Sid. I forget what a Sid was.
I forget what the Sid was. I remember Sid, though. I can't remember what a Sid was.
Back heel, it was a back heel.
It might have been. But
when you're running with a ball and you back heel it. So that was,
I've tried to teach him Jack and Fred, but I've had to obviously give him female names. So it's like Lizzie or something. I've been calling it or something. But it takes time, as you know. It takes time.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, no, but we had a good understanding, myself and Brian. Yeah, and it worked. We scored a lot of goals between us, and he helped me score goals, and I helped him score goals. But he was a real technical player. Very good. Back to goal. Very good. Drop your shoulder, go one way. Left
Fantastic.
And right foot.
Fantastic. So that's your starting 11 team. Mick, Harford. We will now move on to the last couple of questions we ask, which is the first one is, who is the best manager you have ever played under?
Who's going to manage this team? Who's going to manage this team you just picked, Mick?
That's a good question. I've had numerous managers. obviously started at Lincoln with Geraint, who left, and George Kerr. Then I moved on to Newcastle with Arthur Cox, and Bristol City with Bobby Houghton was manager, and Roy Hodgson took over. And I went to Birmingham, and Ron Saunders was the manager. I came to Luton with Platey, then Luton, Derby with Arthur Cox again. Come back to Luton, and Platey was still the manager. We obviously had Ray Harford, the manager. Chelsea, Ian Porterfield was the manager. Sunderland was Terry Butcher. Wimbledon was the Fridge, Joe Kinnear, my hero, yeah. Coventry City, I was at Coventry for a short period of time, and Phil Neal was the manager. But if I had to pick one, tough guy, real tough guy. It's a real close call between, for me, it's a real close call between Joe Kinnear and Ron Saunders. But I'd go for Ron Saunders. Because Ron taught me a lot. He taught me how to look after myself on the pitch. Taught me a lot of things which he was a proper old-fashioned striker, and how to use your body and get in the way of things and make sure they didn't get the ball before you and stuff like that. You know, and he's for all what he was a hard nut, but he was a real generous guy and all that. You know, and God bless him now. He died early in the year or the year before, which was a shame. But yeah, it would be definitely Ron Saunders. But close call would be Joe Kinnear, then maybe David Pleat after that. Yeah.
Okay, great.
Awesome. So, just one final question on the managers. Then you talk about Joe Kinnear. Obviously, you work with him quite a bit as an assistant. And one event which crops up a little bit on this podcast actually is the events that happened in 2003. I think it was 2003, 2004. Around when the Gurney took over, and obviously you were assistant. What was it like going through that bonkers, crazy period of time?
I mean, Joe became a really good. I mean, he said, I got the utmost respect for Joe Kinnear, 100%. When I was retiring at Wimbledon, I retired with Achilles. I was touching 39, and Joe gave me the under-23s job. So basically, I got to thank him for setting me and staying on and in football. He gave me the opportunity to coach the under-23s. And I mean, that was, 23 years ago. So I've been fortunate enough to stay in the game. And it's, in my opinion, thankfully Joe gave me that opportunity. Joe was Marvin will tell you this. Joe wasn't a training ground manager. Joe was a manager on a Saturday. And there's different kind of managers, and he come alive on a Saturday. He's tactically very clever, very astute. But you'd hardly see him in the week. The players hardly see him, but they knew he was around on a Saturday afternoon, and he had an impact. And tactically, he was spot on. And I just, Marvin would back it up for me or whatever. I just thought on a Saturday, Joe Kinnear in the dressing room was very good, especially when he was at Wimbledon with a good group of players. And when he was at Luton, obviously, that's how Marvin experienced him. The Gurney thing was a real strange experience, because myself and Joe got sacked by a letter. We got a letter come through my post, and I looked at it and what's this? And they said, "Oh, we're terminating your contract," which I thought was a bit disrespectful to myself and especially the manager, because I rang Joe up straight away and he hadn't had a letter, and he had to go down the post office because it was a registered post to pick up his letter, and he picked it up. We went, "Yeah, mate, I've been sacked as well." So it was a bit disrespectful by the football club to do it that way, and it did piss me off, to be honest with you. And I did tell them so, because I went in the office and told them so, and because they stopped paying me, and I wasn't happy. So no, it was a strange time. It was a strange time for the football club. Thankfully, those times are behind us. And as I said, it's being a Luton fan. It's a rocky road, and it's a roller coaster ride, and the ups and downs of it is amazing. And we're in a good place at the moment. In a good place, thanks to the sports science who sat there listening to this podcast. Yeah.
I'm just going back to the Fridge, Mick. I mean, like you said, I mean, I obviously experienced him at Luton, and again, similar to yourself, I have him to thank for getting me involved in coaching, because obviously coming towards the end of my playing days at the club. Again, you know Joe better than I do, but I mean, looking at the bigger picture, gave me the opportunity to say, look, Marv, you're not going to be playing like as a regular now. I mean, I would love you to come on board and work alongside John Moore for a year or so, still register you as a player in case of emergencies. Again, Joe thinking about me as a player, not trying to cut it off straight away from the legs and say, that's it, you're not playing, now go on the coaching side. He still gave me the opportunity to say, look, we'll register you as a player, and should we have any emergencies, you can be involved in that way. And so, I mean, I have Joe to thank, the fridge as we call him, a lot for getting me involved in the coaching side and helping bring some players through like myself, Curtis Davis, Kevin Foley, and all them players. I mean, it's fantastic, yeah. So I got a lot of respect for the fridge as well.
Where did this nickname come from, by the way, the fridge?
Mick, no, I don't know. Mick named in the fridge, I think. Was it you, Mick?
No, you know the old American footballer. What was his name? The fridge. And he had
the fridge, yeah.
Joe had a bit of a derby on him, and that, you know, and we just nicknamed him the fridge because that American football looked a bit lumpy and a bit heavy, and he reminded us of him. But the name was given to him by Vinnie, 100%. Just push all the blame onto Jonah, yeah. All down to him, yeah. But he loved it. He loved the crack, and he loved the banter, Joe. And one of the reasons why he was, for me, top manager. He had a good camaraderie with the players and the togetherness and that, you know. And he'd tell the truth. He wouldn't bullshit, you know. There was no messing about. If he did something wrong, he'd tell you, and that's the way it should be. And there was no farting around, no cutting corners and that, you know. If you weren't doing your job, you got told. And there was a few of them who weren't doing the job either when he first came in.
So unusual for you, Mick, but again, because of how successful you've been at the club, normally we turn around and say to the ex-Luton players, what is your most memorable game and why? But you've got, I mean, I'm going to ask you two. One as a player and then one as a manager. Your most memorable Luton games and why? As a player first.
As a player, it was the League Cup final, 100%. And we won it's the only trophy, major trophy Luton's won, and it's an honour to be part of it and part of such a good team and that, you know. And it was a marvellous day. I mean, it was an unbelievable experience for all of us. We'd never experienced a major cup final, and for us to win it, especially against Arsenal, and the way we did it with the late goals and that, you know, it was typical Luton, like a roller coaster. We were winning, we were getting beat, we were 2-1 down, and
penalty.
Yeah, the penalty saves. Dibbs makes an unbelievable save. Dibbs gets man of the match. Then Danny and Brian pop up with the late goals. It's just typical. Typifies Luton, that game. Absolutely typifies it. Yeah, and yeah, absolutely. Yeah, unbelievable.
Okay, now as manager, or I mean, probably large. Was it?
Manager Luton. I would have to say, Marvin, that it's probably when Luton won the Johnson Spade Trophy. The reason why I say that is obviously the achievement of a couple of years ago when we got promoted. We won the title. That was brilliant for everyone at the football club, what we'd achieved, where we come from. But that day, the club was in a mess. We've been deducted 30 points. We were relegated. And we had no chance. I thought we had a chance with minus 30, but you won a game or you lost a game, and the others had won, and you just kept falling behind. And we nearly got there at a certain point in the season. I thought we got a chance here, but for the players to dig in and win that trophy against all the odds, and the biggest thing for me, Marv, you know what I'm going to say, was 40,000 people at Wembley.
Yeah,
40,000 Luton fans at Wembley. On a team that's bottom of the League Two, getting relegated into conference with a 30-point deduction, it just shows what this club's all about. You know, the way they got behind the club and the way. And listen, that win was for them. You know, and I believe if those 40,000 people hadn't been there, there'd been a chance we wouldn't have won that game.
No. spoke about it many a time about the supporters. I mean, again, like not trying to harp on about the Gurney situation, but that again, I mean, they led the way in not buying season tickets and not like putting money into the club for this guy to sort of like siphon out and take with him. So again, like you said, it's a roller coaster situation with the club, which hopefully those days are gone now. But one thing I think you know, and I know, that the supporters, these Luton supporters, are so passionate. I mean, again, I know most players would say that of their own team, but there's just something about this club, in my experience, that just makes them a little bit more special.
Well, absolutely, Marvin. I mean, just to echo your point, it's a case of look who's running the football club now. 2020, they're the ones who run the club, and each and every one of them are Luton Town fans. They are Luton Town fans through and through, and that's the reason why we're in this position. You know, it hadn't been for them, this could have gone under. You know, so we've got to be thankful for them. And as I love working for the club. You know what I think of the club. I know what you think of the club, and basically everyone who comes in contact with it as a nice story to say about it and all that. I know ex-players, ex-staff. There's no animosity towards the football club. It's a brilliant feeling at the moment, and long may it continue. And we'll keep working hard to try to continue being successful, hopefully.
No, brilliant, fantastic, Mick. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your time. Thank you very much. And I'll give you the last word to say to the fans of all the clubs you play for, not just Luton.
Well, personally, I'd like to say thanks for all your support you've given me down the years, each and every club. There's been plenty of them, let me tell you. Some of them longer than others, and that, you know, but each and every club I've been to, I've always tried to give them my best, and I really, really enjoyed my time there. So thanks to all the fans who's given me support, and I just wish every club I've played for all the best this season and everyone's successful. So thank you. Come on, you Hearts.
Brilliant, Mick. Thank you. Well done, Mick.
Thank you so much for your time. And that brings to the end another episode of My Best 11 podcast with Mick Harford. Thank you very much and enjoy your listening.